Chapter 606, The Safety Island. Serious matter, Chen Bailey turned to Lu Shu and said, "Head towards the direction I came from. There's a safety island there." Lu Shu's attention was immediately caught by the key words in his sentence. An island? Safe? Chen Bailey continued, "There's something wrong with the daytime and nighttime here. It was close to dawn when we arrived, and the place where you are standing right now was a vast, peaceful ocean, which is inhabited by a strange, very aggressive human-looking race. There is no random allocation of positions upon entry into the remains this time, and everyone was transported to the island." Lu Shu and Chen Zuan were dumbfounded. It was hard to believe that the mirror below would turn into a sea full of belligerent creatures. It was mysteriously odd. Lu Shu took a while to get his bearings and asked, "Old man, so you are saying that those who come in at night will only be transported to the island, and only us, who arrived later, appeared on the mirror, right?" That explained why the students he saw along the way all belonged to the last few batches. Lu Shu felt that those on the island should be safe because they had Chen Bailey with them. After all, that old priest was one of the few Class A's in the world. "Then what are you doing now?" Lu Shu was curious. "I have the responsibility to bring every student out of here safely since I led them inside," Chen Bailey replied calmly. "During daytime, I am constantly searching in all directions around the island to bring those scattered ones back to the island. Fortunately, there were few who have just entered recently. Okay, it's getting dark and time is running out. I have 2 more directions to cover other than this one. Go to the island first and I'll see you there before sunset." Then Chen Bailey flew off. Lu Shu was relieved. Other students, including Jiang Feng, would be safe under the old man's protection. But the question was, how could he carry so many people? Lu Shu and Chen Zuan dashed towards the direction of the island. They had expected it to be near, but it actually took them 3 hours whole to see the shape of the island in the distance. Lu Shu exclaimed as they drew closer to their destination, "This island is huge." Not only so, they could see thick stone walls erected along the coastline. They were rather basic, though, and looked like a makeshift defense line. The wall surrounded the island like the Great Wall of China. Lu Shu reckoned those students must have been kept rather busy these few days on the wall. On the other hand, one could not deny the amazing feat achieved when tens of thousands of practitioners with average abilities above Class E worked together. If an island as big as an average town had to hide behind the walls, Lu Shu was afraid that he might have underestimated the threatening powers of the race from the sea. In addition, it was unlikely that Chen Bailey, despite his Class A abilities, could take care of such a long coastline. When Lu Shu and Chen Zuan reached the defense line, a person immediately stood up from behind the 1-meter-tall wall. "New faces. Welcome. I am the leader of Team 42. You are part of us from now onwards. Let's fight against our enemies together." Lu Shu and Chen Zuan were confused. Lu Shu immediately asked to clarify, "Wait a second, buddy. Why are we joining Team 42? This is a rule on the island set by Heavenly King Chen, that all students who arrive will be received into the team of that specific direction. It is to ensure the order of the island. Moreover, each team is responsible for its own share of the defense line. But why is the team leader not a class aptitude genius?" Lu Shu was lost. It shouldn't be like this because class aptitude geniuses were supposed to represent the top combat powers of the team. Not annoyed, Mo Chengkong explained with a smile, "Not all geniuses are good leaders. Our team was supposed to be led by a genius called Chao Qingxi, but she refused." Lu Shu suddenly realized that Mo Chengkong had a point. In any case, the Chao Qingxi in Lu Shu's impression would never want to be a leader as she preferred to stay alone. No wonder Lu Shu had never met Mo Chengkong before. But based on the expressions of other students around, it seemed that Chengkong had earned the respect and recognition as a leader. Then, Lu Shu noticed that he had not seen any of the students present. It was certainly normal though, considering the huge population on the safety island. Among the 60,000, Lu Shu only knew around 1,000 of them. In comparison, the probability of seeing familiar faces was low. But Lu Shu could not stay here, he had to look for Lu Xiaoyu. Under such circumstances, his top priority was to protect Lu Xiaoyu beyond a doubt. Well, I'm sorry, Captain Mo. I'm afraid I can't join you because I'm rushing to somewhere. Lu Shu left at once after he was done speaking, but he could not move. His face darkened as he looked down to see Mo Chenkong hugging his legs tightly. Can you let me go, Captain Mo? But the students around did not look surprised at all. Could he have become a leader through such techniques? That's cheeky. Mo Chenkong looked up, looking as if blood tears were about to roll down his eyes. I'll let you go if you agree to stay. Your talent will be wasted if you are not an actor. So how? He couldn't kick his comrade away, could he? That was why overseas missions had fewer restrictions. Mo Chenkong pleaded, brother, our Team 42 is small. Although we were lucky enough during the last round of attack, what if we get assaulted this time? The more people we have, the stronger our team is. I can tell from your handsome faces and elegant gestures that you are certainly two of the strongest experts. Please stay and help us fight. Lu Shu glanced over at the other hundreds of team members of Team 42. Did he say this to you too? They nodded their heads silently. Lu Shu sighed and said, you have so many strong experts, so it won't make a difference if I'm not here. However, you can keep this little fatty. Meanwhile, Chen Zuan was laughing as he saw Lu Shu's joke. Having heard that, he immediately raised his voice and said, Captain Mo, do hug him tightly. I follow him wherever he goes. Let me go, Captain Mo. I'm not going anywhere. Lu Shu smiled. He immediately took to his heels when Mo Chenkong complied. But this time, he did not succeed either. Mo Chenkong had locked him in his arms again. Chapter 607, Borrow Arrows with Thatched Boats. After 2 hours, Lu Shu glimpsed at Mo Chenkong, his expressions slightly annoyed. Captain Mo, that's enough. Are you still leaving? Mo Chenkong asked. No. No. I promise I'm not leaving this time. Really? Lu Shu replied impatiently. How should I trust you? It's your 47th time saying that. From the side, Chen Zuan suggested, one of his eyes swollen, ask him to deposit 1,000 bucks. I'm sure he won't leave like that. 1 minute later, both of Chen Zuan's eyes were purple and swollen. He pleaded, Brother Mo, this is the most I can do. You will lose manpower if I continue to help you. In the past, Lu Shu had noticed that Chen Zuan was exceptionally naughty. He dared to piss off Gao Shinin, Chang Qiuqiao and Hao Jiqiao. But now Lu Shu realized that Chen Zuan was not afraid of death. Lu Shu took out 1,000 yuan from his wallet, but took back 500 upon second thoughts. He passed it to Mo Chenkong and said, rest assured that I'm really not going anywhere this time. Mo Chenkong counted the notes and put it in his wallet. I'll return you the money once we get out of here. Don't worry. Only until then did the atmosphere in Team 42 return to normal. Suddenly Mo Chenkong asked in high spirits, since you are my team members now, you have to listen to me. What are your levels, gentlemen? Mid-class D. Mid-class D. The two of them spoke simultaneously. They exchanged a look of understanding. Mo Chenkong grinned. I'm at the peak of Class D, now, I'll introduce to you our defense line, and each one has a part to play in guarding it at night. Then, the two of them listened carefully to Mo Chenkong's summarized military strategies. Soldiers from the sea were all clad in corroded bronze armor, and their only weapon was a trident. Most of them were Class Ds to Es, with a few tough ones of Class C. One might ask why they stuck to heavy metals like bronze in the sea. But it turned out that they liked it. Moreover, they would vanish into a wisp of splendid powder after death, no corpses left behind. Many people had engaged in close combat with the people of the sea, and all of them asserted that they looked almost identical to humans except for a slight tinge of blue in their skin. It was expected to see special organs like gills for underwater living, but they turned out to be non-existent too. At this moment, Chen Bailey flew back from the horizon. To Lu Shu's surprise, the old man was hauling a very thick hemp rope, on which groups of students were holding tightly onto the robe in order not to fall. I was wondering how he could bring back so many people, Lu Shu exclaimed, and now he's become a Chen Bailey helicopter. Chen Zhuan whispered, do you still want to leave, Brother Shu? I feel that this team is really quite weak. Should we stay here to help them? Annoyed, Lu Shu answered, rest assured. I'm not leaving. Then Lu Shu saw Chen Zhuan rush off buoyantly. He glanced over to see a girl leaning against the stone wall with a book on her laps. Du Shueme. Lu Shu suddenly understood why that little fatty was so eager to stay at all costs. It was because the girl of his dream was here. How bloody romantic. Du Shueme was reading a book quietly. Maybe no one had thought of bringing a book into the remains, but Du Shueme was uninterested in the surrounding activities either. When the little fatty approached her, Du Shueme looked up, her face filled with joy. Meanwhile, Lu Shu looked into the distance, distress all over his face. He should take things as they came, since Lu Xiaoyu was certainly safe amongst Class D and C losers from the sea. Soon, Lu Shu saw Chen Zhuan take out a few packs of food from his bag. Only then did Lu Shu notice that the students around looked rather skinny and pale. Could it be there was a shortage of food supply on the island? Lu Shu had brought loads of food too, but only sufficient for 2 people to survive 1 month. It would be insignificant for the huge population now residing on the island. Therefore, it would be wiser to figure out a way out of the remains rather than giving out his food. As time trickled by, it was finally getting dark. Chen Zhuan had returned to Lu Shu. He announced cheerfully, Shueme said that I've become tougher after my mission. She said I'm not as fat as before, I'm just chubby. Look how happy you are. You gave out your food? Lu Shu asked. They are rather miserable now. Everyone has only prepared 15 days' amount of food and now, 10 days have passed. Their food has all been confiscated for fair distribution. Lu Shu commented calmly, it seemed that your granduncle has plans for a prolonged battle. He's also uncertain where the relic is. I'm afraid it's under the sea. I agree. Chen Zhuan nodded. But now, we don't know their situations, nor the presence of other creatures underwater. So even my granduncle may not rashly venture there. After all, he has to use 30% of his power to protect himself against water in the sea. The waiting time was painfully long. Chen Bailey had finally finished the search in the last direction before sunset. When darkness befell the world, stars had sprawled out in the night sky. At this time, the mirror surface had completely turned into a peaceful, windless ocean. The reflection of stars and galaxies in the sea had almost turned it into a starry sky as well. The view was breathtaking, as the universe unfolded its vastness and magnificence. It'd be just wonderful if this place were safe. It would be a paradise, Mo Chenkong said, gazing into the sky and sea atop the defense line. Suddenly a faint wave undulated outwards on the sea surface close to their defense. Lu Shu immediately pulled Mo Chenkong back. In a split second, a trident shot out from the sea towards where Mo Chenkong was standing. He would have been dead if Lu Shu was slightly slower. That was not the end yet. Just when everybody held their breath in alarm, Lu Shu leaped up and grabbed hold of the flying trident. Then, he stood on the stone wall himself. In the next instant, 3 tridents shot towards him, but Lu Shu caught them at once. Chen Zhuan was dumbfounded. He murmured to Lu Shu's lone figure on the wall, bow. Borrowing arrows with thatched boats 1. Chapter 608, Disappearing Tridents. Chen Zuan looked sheepishly at Lu Shu, who was holding 4 tridents. Lu Shu still seemed unsatisfied. The soldiers of the sea realized that this kind of attack did no damage to Lu Shu and stopped throwing their tridents. Lu Shu waited for a long time, but realized that there was no movement. He jumped back into their line of defense. Mo Chenkong had wanted to thank Lu Shu, but Lu Shu patted him on the shoulder instead. "Thanks for your hard work." Mo Chenkong was confused. Without Mo Chenkong as the target, Lu Shu would not have collected so many tridents. Of course, Chen Zuan knew why Lu Shu said so, but the others did not know. "That was too risky of you," someone said. "But your reflexes are very fast. If not, Captain Mo would have been in danger."
Ha! Ha!
"That's because I was paying attention to the movements in the water, while all of you were distracted by the beautiful scenery," Lu Shu casually explained. This explanation somewhat convinced them. But everyone's impression towards Lu Shu changed. It was just like when you were engaged in combat and were impressed by your comrade's sudden fine operation. You would realize that this comrade was reliable. But even though this comrade was impressive, he was not as impressive as me. I will carry the entire match. The Daoyuan class students had grown from the military training. They were all waiting to show off their abilities. They were like a hero who had just undergone training. They felt that they were rookies who could immediately surpass others. But some of them, for example Mo Chenkong, could see how Lu Shu was different from the others. It was very obvious. Back then, only Lu Shu reacted and saved Mo Chenkong. His ability to act according to his circumstance was not one that ordinary Daoyuan class students possessed. Furthermore, the question was that Lu Shu dared to go beyond the line of defense to catch the tridents. His mentality was very different from that of ordinary Daoyuan class students. Lu Shu moved back 2 steps. Before he could walk further, Mo Chenkong cozied up to him. "Expert, please don't leave." "I'm not leaving." Lu Shu sighed. "Captain, I feel that your name will appear in the history of training." Lu Shu truly admired Mo Chenkong. He really cozied up to someone powerful. He did not seem sloppy and had no shame. Yet, this kind of person could narrowly escape death. At the same time, the attack by the soldiers of the sea had covered almost all the lines of defense on the safety island. All the Daoyuan class students held their breath in concentration, waiting for the next attack. Only Chen Bailey could retrieve the relic. Chen Bailey hovered in midair, carefully observing any movements from the soldiers of the sea. He was not particularly panicky. There was no use panicking. If they spent too much time here, and when the Heavenly Network calculated that they had exceeded the time limit that their rations would last them for, there would be people deployed to deliver rations into the remains. Perhaps even Yiting would rush here and complete their task in the remains. Suddenly, an army from the soldiers of the sea rushed out from the surface of the water. In a flash, battles broke out all across the island. Chen Bailey chose to assist the area where the attacks were most concentrated. With a wave of his hand, a blue flying sword was sent down to the battlefield. It shuttled back and forth among the soldiers of the sea. Its destructive power was terrifying. At that moment, more soldiers appeared the side of the coast that had been momentarily neglected by Chen Bailey. They realized that it was most difficult for them to deal with Chen Bailey, thus they had used the lives of some of their soldiers as bait. The rest of the soldiers planned to create a gap in their defense. The main areas of attack were between the 42nd Battalion and the 48th Battalion. The soldiers there raised their tridents and jumped over the stone wall of defense. Seeing this, Lu Shu became slightly annoyed. Why did his side have to be the main target of attack? This was too much. In Lu Shu's eyes, each of the soldiers were weapons that could run. As he warded off the soldiers, Lu Shu shouted, "Captain Mo, didn't you say that we won't be attacked here?" Mo Chenkong also shouted, "I was afraid that this would happen if I left you all behind." As Mo Chenkong wanted to get his troops to step back and wait for the aid of bigger troops, Lu Shu went against the flow and charged forth. Lu Shu held a trident in his hands and rushed forward. The bronze armor on the soldiers' bodies gave the most trouble. Not only were their standard long swords shorter than their tridents, it was very hard to break through the defense of the bronze armor. But Lu Shu was even more impressive. He did not break through their defense. He used the trident like a wooden bat used to beat clothes while washing. His hits became more accurate over time. Before their bronze armor broke, the soldiers of the sea had been hit to the ground by Lu Shu. This is the ability of a mid-tier class D? Don't play around with me, I am a mid-tier class D2, said someone in surprise. The Daoyuan class students, who had been scared stiff by the sheer amount of troops, suddenly felt less pressured by Lu Shu in front of them. If you told me that he is a heavenly king, I would believe you. A fine operation during a battle would make people feel that this comrade was reliable, but when an extraordinary fighter appeared 8 minutes into the fight, even fools would understand that they had encountered a true expert. Lu Shu shuttled back and forth across the battlefield, continuously finding soldiers of the sea to fend off. Even then, the enemy continued advancing forward. It was not because Lu Shu was not strong enough, but it was very tiring to cover the entire 42nd Battalion. He could not possibly take care of a 100-meter-long line of defense by himself. Chen Zuan, who was by Lu Shu's side, went for the kill. In the battlefield, only he could match up to Lu Shu's rhythm. Amidst the chaos, the injuries did not stop. However, Mo Chenkong was indeed suitable to become a captain. Every time someone in his team was injured, he would bring people to protect the injured and retreat. For a period of time, they did not lose any men. Lu Shu's attacks did not cause death, as he was only using his trident to hit people. He did not stab people to death either. When the soldiers of the sea passed by them, they were hit into confusion, but did not die. Thus, the responsibility of killing off the soldiers fell on Chen Zuan. Brother Shu, where are their tridents? Chen Zuan asked. Why did all the soldiers he was about to kill not have anything in their hands? As Lu Shu searched for the soldiers of the sea, he laughed. Little sparrow, wearing bright clothes. It comes every spring. I asked the sparrow, why are you here? Chen Zuan was dumbfounded. Why did Lu Shu suddenly start singing? He carefully tried answering. The sparrow said, the spring here is the most beautiful. Lu Shu shook. The sparrow said, mind your own business. From Chen Zuan's Distress, plus 999. Chapter 609, The True Expert. As Lu Shu and Chen Zuan fought, they slowly started to distance themselves from the rest of the battalion. This was not because they were intentionally putting distance between them and the rest. As the line of defense continued moving backwards, everyone had followed suit except for Lu Shu and Chen Zuan. Lu Shu and Chen Zuan were like a solitary boat surrounded by the soldiers of the sea. They were isolated and cut off from help. Lu Shu was very happy. There was only one Class C among the soldiers of the sea that they had encountered. The Class C had been killed by Lu Shu and Chen Zuan. The other soldiers were no match for them. Even if they were surrounded by the soldiers, it did not matter. If there were too many soldiers for them to handle, they still had Chen Bailey around. He would eventually find out what was happening here. But Mo Chenkong and the rest did not think so. They continued moving backwards. After a while, they realized that they were not in as much danger. They looked back and saw Lu Shu and Chen Zuan surrounded by the soldiers of the sea. Mo Chenkong and the rest were no longer the main targets. No, we cannot leave them alone. Mo Chenkong shouted, brothers, we cannot abandon our comrades like that. The 42nd Battalion cannot lack even one man. Under these circumstances, if someone took the lead to run away, their team would be defeated and dispersed. People often had a herd mentality. In times like this, there had to be someone to call for action. Mo Chenkong filled in this role. Emo Chinkong took the lead and rushed forth. The group of people followed him without much thought. Everyone was fired up. This was the camaraderie that they had desired. All for one and one for all. At this moment, they suddenly realized that there was nothing to fear about the soldiers of the sea. The first night they were here, the soldiers of the sea had attacked without restraint. Everyone was slightly stressed about this. But the ones dealing with the greatest stress now were Lu Shu and Chen Zuan. After they had taken the lead, everyone else's stress had decreased significantly. The formation of the soldiers of the sea was momentarily broken. Emo Chinkong's abilities truly lived up to that of a peak class D. He became like the head of an arrow, leading his troops to join Lu Shu and Chen Zuan. He forced the soldiers of the sea out of his way. The Daoyuan class students there were all very strong. But strength and combat abilities were different. One only had combat abilities if one was willing to fight. Lu Shu was happy knocking out the soldiers of the sea. As he knocked the soldiers of the sea unconscious, he took their trident and threw it into the Seal of Lands. Although Lu Shu was unhappy that his mystic water had been taken away by the chaos, he still had to take care of chaos. This was food reserved for chaos after it woke up. Suddenly, Lu Shu heard Emo Chinkong's shout. "The two of you, don't be afraid. We are here to help you." Lu Shu looked at this group of students. At first, they were unable to shake off their fear towards the soldiers of the sea. But now, they were charging forth out of their own initiative. The two groups joined within a short 3 minutes. Lu Shu now only had to face enemies from one side, instead of all 4 sides. Lu Shu rushed towards the beach, while Emo Chinkong and the rest of the 42nd Battalion followed closely behind him. While the other battalions were still struggling to fight off the soldiers of the sea, the 42nd Battalion, who had been the main target of attack, had launched their counterattack. Lu Shu was like a steadfast refuge during heavy rain and strong wind. Everyone silently stood behind Lu Shu, fighting the soldiers of the sea at close quarters. When this kind of formation was formed, the rate of injuries immediately dropped. But everyone realized one problem with shock. Where did the tridents go? Someone asked with uncertainty. Didn't they all have tridents when they came on shore? Where did they go? Something is not right. Even if the soldiers of the sea had combat power, once they regained their consciousness and wanted to attack, they would realize that their weapons had disappeared. Everyone carefully looked at Lu Shu. They realized that when the soldiers of the sea were fighting with Lu Shu, they still had the trident in their hands. But when Lu Shu hit them, the trident disappeared in a blink of an eye. Is that the invisible storage equipment? Someone asked as he attacked the soldiers of the sea that approached him. Did he take their trident and store it in the invisible storage equipment? This seemed to be the only explanation that made sense. At first, everyone had thought that it was hard to use the standard long sword to fight the soldiers of the sea. Thus, after killing the soldiers of the sea, they picked up their tridents and used it as their weapon. This was a very smart decision. Those who had changed their weapons became more powerful and bold. Others also followed suit and wanted to pick up tridents, but they realized. There were no more tridents. It was almost as if these soldiers of the sea had come on shore for a visit. Lu Shu felt that he heard something and suddenly shouted. Their tridents disappeared. How mysterious, how mysterious. Chen Zuan, Emo Chinkong, and the rest of the 42nd Battalion was speechless. Could your acting get any worse? From Chen Zuan's distress, plus 166. From Chen Zuan realized that Lu Shu did not cover up the fact that he used the invisible storage equipment. From Chen Zuan's point of view, there was no big deal in Lu Shu taking away the tridents. After all, Lu Shu was very good at throwing things. He would have a use for this. But Chen Zuan did not know that Lu Shu used the tridents to feed chaos. Suddenly, help arrived. When Mo Chenkong saw this, he was elated and left the team to meet the troops who were assisting them. He wanted to explain what had happened here. But when the troops arrived, they took a glance before turning and going to help other areas instead. Mo Chenkong grabbed their leader's legs and said, "Brother, please don't leave. Aren't you here to help us? Why are you leaving?" The leader looked at Mo Chenkong expressionlessly. "You are?" "I am Mo Chenkong, the captain of the 42nd Battalion," Mo Chenkong said as he raised his head. "I am Chang Chioqiao from the 2nd Battalion," said Chang Chioqiao. Mo Chenkong was dumbfounded. He knew that the captains of the first 30 battalions were class aptitude geniuses. This meant that Chang Chioqiao was at least a peak class C expert. He could use flying swords and such. Under these circumstances, Mo Chenkong could not possibly let them go. "Brother, please help us. Don't leave." Chang Chioqiao was baffled. "Brother Lu Shu is here. You don't need help. Let go of me, there are still areas that are in danger." "Brother Lu Shu." Mo Chenkong let go of Chang Chioqiao in a daze. Chang Chioqiao left, leaving Mo Chenkong alone to look at Lu Shu. He is the true expert. Chapter 610, Killing Back into the Sea. Chang Chioqiao still felt rather baffled when he left. Why waste their time here when Lu Shu was on their team? Actually, he had spotted Lu Shu on the front line the moment he reached there. In Chang Chioqiao's impression, Lu Shu was much stronger than himself, judging from the experience they had as team members and the stories he heard from Hao Jichao. Afterwards, he had become Lu Shu's fanboy. Under his influence, many Class A aptitude geniuses also addressed Lu Shu cordially as Brother Lu Shu. Of course, though, not everyone admired Lu Shu, and Chang Chioqiao was only among the minority. Only those who had worked on the same team as Lu Shu were convinced that his strength lay not in his fighting abilities alone. However, the rest thought otherwise, especially when Lu Shu's Japan mission and his current military ranks and abilities were kept strictly confidential. In their impression, Lu Shu was still the Class C strength-type metahuman, while they had ascended to the peak of Class C after their assignments. They were no longer the Class E rookies during the military training back then. Hence, many had long since forgotten about Lu Shu, because they believed the future of the Heavenly Network lay in their hands, not those of a mere strength-type metahuman. Mo Chenkong eyed Lu Shu. A student from the Northwest Cultivation College, Chenkong did not attend the training together with Lu Xiaoyu, and never had he heard of Lu Shu's name as well. Wait, he had heard of his name. Wasn't that the national hero who had come back to life? Someone who could be respectfully addressed as brother by a Class A genius would by no means be weak. Therefore, he must be lying when he claimed to be a mid-class D, as he must at the very least be at the peak of Class C. Mo Chenkong felt even safer now, as the person had not even used his flying dagger so far, which meant the situation was well under his control. Speaking of which, he seemed to be having fun. In the meantime, Lu Shu led the team and charged forward, while other teams were backing away. Lu Shu had almost chased the people of the sea back to their home, while the others were still waiting for assistance. Probably the people of the sea had purposely avoided the defense line of Team 42 on the first night to let their guard down, so that they could break through from there on the second night. Nonetheless, they would have never expected that their attack formation was torn open. Lu Shu was on a killing spree. In excitement, he had even broken 2 tridents. Though feeling sorry for the loss, Lu Shu thought it was the best way of assault, as the tridents had just the right length and weight. Hence, he retrieved 2 more tridents and advanced forward, really forcing the people of the sea back into the ocean. Actually, they were planning to flee underwater and attack other defense lines. Just when Chen Zuan was about to relax, he quickly pulled back Lu Shu, who was jumping into the sea. "Don't, Brother Shu. You can't do it." Lu Shu was surrounded by startled stares. Apparently, this pro had wanted to continue killing the people of the sea and water. How amazing! How come the second night was easier than the first, despite an increased number of enemies. Lu Shu smacked his lips in disappointment. He knew he had only collected at most 200 tridents so far, but he wanted more. Why was he so obsessed with the ruins? It was because there were loads of good stuff inside. When others saw danger, Lu Shu's sharp eyes could always find benefits in the perils. As a result, Lu Shu's attention had subconsciously been drawn to their tridents when all other people saw were terrifying enemies. Suddenly he turned to see Team 43 had retreated a few hundred meters back on shore by the people of the sea, with many casualties as well. Lifting his arms, Lu Shu yelled, "Brothers, let's go assist our comrades of Team 43." Then, he took the lead and darted towards Team 43. However, instead of converging with their team members, Lu Shu cut into the formation of the people of the sea like an accurate scalpel, splitting open a line. The ocean contrasted finely with the starry sky, and Lu Shu was at his optimal state. None of the sea soldiers could survive Lu Shu's tridents. One of the soldiers lifted up its trident to defend against Lu Shu, but it instantly collapsed onto the floor with a bang. Upon contact with its knees, the stones underneath immediately shattered into pieces. Lu Shu's strength was not something a mere Class D could bear. The sound of fractured bones made Lu Shu's team members' flesh creep. It must be excruciatingly painful. Team 43 suddenly felt a decrease in pressure on the defense line. One person shouted ecstatically when he looked into the distance, "The team beside us has come to help us. They have cut off the escape route of those sea creatures. Come on, counterattack, brothers." But before he was done speaking, Lu Shu had led his team back to Team 42's defense line. "What is Team 42 doing?" Team 43's captain mumbled helplessly. They felt the pressure increasing again. "Let's continue with the retreat then." "Hang on, my friends. Retreat if you can't take it." The sudden changes in strategies were getting confusing. Lu Shu had returned because the Sea Army had wanted to take advantage of the weak defense at Team 42's line. But now, they were forced back into the sea again. Lu Shu was not an impulsive man. The blame would be on him if he failed to guard his own line, allowing the enemies to find a point of breakthrough. Having collected another 20 or so tridents, Lu Shu waved his hand and shouted, as the Sea Army retreated, "Let's help Team 43, brothers." With that, he led the team back to their own line yet again. The Sea Army and Team 43 were both dumbfounded. "What are you doing? Confusing us? Can you be clearer on what you want to do?" Soon, the people of the sea had given up attacking Team 42's coastline. That human was so despicable. He always faked leaving.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens.